Hello everyone, Warmack9 here, bringing you the very first episode of Forum 9, a show where I plan on talking to you guys about different topics, different subjects, get your feedback, and kind of give you my own opinion or my own slant on the story. This particular episode is going to be mostly about my history in gaming, what kind of stuff I've done, and like consoles I've had, games I've had, stuff like that. So, I suppose it really all starts for me sometime back in. I don't even have to say sometime. I know exactly when it started. Christmas of '93. It was a very magical year because that year I'd asked for a Nintendo Game Boy from my parents for Christmas. And I didn't want much. I just wanted, the big gray brick. I still have it. It's over here in a little Nintendo case that was like specially designed to hold the game plus like 16 cartridges inside their little plastic cover things, because back then the Game Boy cartridges came in their own individual casings, which is kind of awesome. And they don't do that stuff anymore for the Advance or the DS. It's now like you get the whole box and that's the case. But I digress. The Christmas, I was supposed to get just the Game Boy. Well, my dad remembered that I wanted a Game Boy, and my parents didn't. Or my mother didn't, and my grandparents didn't. They were like, well, we know he wants one of those video game consoles. What are we going to get him? So that year, I got kind of lucky out on this one, and my dad bought me the Game Boy, Mom bought me a Super Nintendo, and my grandparents bought me a Sega Genesis. So I got 3 different gaming consoles all in the same Christmas, and they couldn't take them back because they gave them to me for Christmas, and they were like, well, that'd be kind of a mean move to just take them back after we gave him a really nice gift, and he had such an exciting Christmas. And on the Game Boy, my first games were like Kirby Dream Land 2 and The Getaway, which was a pinball game themed around like racing cars that were trying to outrun police. And I didn't like the pinball, but I liked the driving portion. But unfortunately, you had to get to like bonus round in order to get to drive. Yes, this is a Rubik's Cube. It's a specially ordered custom purchase thing I got on Amazon. It's very slidey, works very smooth. A lot better than my previous Rubik's Cube, which is like a small brick. Any case, if you see me looking down over here, that's me looking at my computer screen where my face is. So that way I can try and make sure that I'm somewhat in the center of camera, even though the camera's like tilted way over here. The center of camera looks like it should be right here, but it's actually right here. I don't get that. Anyway, video games. I got, like I said, those first 2 games on the Game Boy, and then I shortly thereafter got Animaniacs on the Game Boy, because I really like that as a TV show. Animaniacs was pretty awesome. It was a really nice, kid-friendly show, but it had a lot of adult humor hidden in it, behind the scenes kind of thing, kind of like what Adventure Time does and other shows have done in the past. And then for the Super Nintendo, I had Super Mario All-Stars, which is later re-released with Super Mario World in it as well. I never had Super Mario World. I always wanted it. I ended up having to borrow it from my friend Laura, who lived across the street from my grandparents' house. And yeah, that was really the first big one I had on there. And then I think I ended up getting Super Mario Kart for my birthday immediately following Christmas. So like, 30-something days later, I got Super Mario Kart, which was a good game. But like I said, I had Super Mario All-Stars, which came with the console, and Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. Oh my god. I played that game so long without ever getting through the first temple. Like, I was absolutely terrified of dying in Legend of Zelda. It was a harrowing experience when I saved Zelda, because I got through the first night. You have to get through the first night. But killing the guy that spins the flail, the Morning Star thing around in the dungeon, that was like a feat and a half for me. And when I managed to do it, I was like, I was gone. I had no idea that I could manage to do that. And then I spent all my time wandering around the world. I went to Kakariko like a billion times expecting to find something different. I maxed out my money like really early. I found the Master Sword long before I was ever supposed to find the Master Sword, because you have to go get the 3 pendants and then the books to be able to read the podium on which the Master Sword's on. And I didn't know that. I just found the sword and I sat there and I like pulling on it for like days and Link looks all constipated and he can't actually pull the sword out. Yeah, I played that game for so long because I was terrified of actually dying in it, and eventually I managed to beat it. I don't remember when that was, but I got it eventually. And then for the Sega Genesis, I had a Sonic all-in-one game, which was Sonic 1, Sonic 2, and Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine all-in-one cartridge for the Sega Genesis. Which the Genesis I received was effectively the Sega Genesis 2, because the original Genesis was a little bit wider console and had a little circle bit on it with the cartridge slot on top, whereas the one I had was more square with the circular bit and the cartridge slot in the middle. It was still basically the same thing, and you could still pagoda it out by adding on a Sega CD and a 32-bit expansion, and the 32X on top of that with Sonic Knuckles on top of that with, something else on top of that. Knuckles Chaotix on top of that. It just got really out of hand. But yes, that was the first game that I got with my Genesis, and then I also got Vector Man, which Vector Man was awesome. But one of the things I always noticed about the Sega Genesis was that a lot of the time the games didn't really allow you to save, which is what I loved about the Super Nintendo back then, was that you could save most of your games. Your games had progress, and you retained your progress even if you quit the game. All that was all the way up until I figured out how to cheat on Sonic Adventure. This is not Sonic Adventure. Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Which also goes without saying, Sonic is better than Mario. I don't care what you say. If it takes not only platforming, but really creative level design, as well as breakneck speeds, that's more skills than you have to have with Mario. With Mario, you just have to be good at platforming. With Sonic, you got to be platforming, you got to be going fast, you got these really cool looking levels. Sometimes they have really annoying mechanics, I will say, like in, I think it was Sonic the Hedgehog 3 or Sonic and Knuckles, the big pyramid stage. There was one pyramid stage you could be in there for the full 10 minutes just sliding down these little sand slides perpetually, and you'll never actually get to the end because you have to hop at a certain point to go on to a different sand slide to go down, and then hop it again, go on to another sand slide, and it was annoying. But I love Sonic. Sonic is like the best game series that has become so awful in recent years, except for Sonic Generations. I will say that game is pretty awesome. Let's see. Eventually, I developed a series of games over the years. I got Final Fantasy 3 on the Super Nintendo. People say that that's only on the Super Famicom, but no, it was a 6 on the Japanese version. And then it was re-released here as 6 on the PS1 in the Anthology Pack. And I've got a cartridge somewhere over here in the closet. There's a cartridge, and I can show it to you guys later if my proof is questioned. It was one of those game-changing moments for me. And Final Fantasy was like one of the only games I've ever beaten, and then like I started to feel emotions, and I was like, oh my god, that's so sad. Final Fantasy VI is the only game that actually really had that effect with me with any of the Final Fantasy games. That you go through all this, you learn all this about all the characters. There's like 16 characters. All of them have pretty well fleshed out backstories, with maybe the exception of like a couple. The Abominable Snowman, the Mimic guy, everybody else, there's story behind them. They have a history, they have a purpose, they have a point in being in this universe and a reason to fight, and that was what made that game easily my favorite pick of all. And I'm getting distracted again. Eventually, Pokemon came out on the Game Boy. Oh my god. We were wandering through, me and my parents back then were wandering through Best Buy. Might have been Best Buy, might have been Circuit City. There was like a bargain bin kind of thing, a little runway display shelf that they had with all these different Game Boy games in it. And there was Pokemon Red, and I'd been seeing the commercials where there was like a vacuum cleaner and it just sucks up all these random looking creatures. I'm like, what is that? And then there'd be a different commercial where it's like Pokemon are like flying over apartment buildings, and I'm like, what is that? I don't know what that is. And I eventually go and get Red version just out of like pure curiosity. I've never seen the anime. I've never seen anything about Pokemon. And I woke up early the next day because I didn't get to play any that night when we got it. Woke up early the next day for whatever reason. I didn't feel well. I had stomach cramps. I had to go to the bathroom. Woke up before I had to go to school. Started playing a little bit. I was like, oh, this is not bad. And over the next like year, all of my time was consumed in Pokemon Red. I had 240 hours played on Pokemon Red by the time I beat it, like 100%. I bought a second Game Boy with my own money, a Game Boy Pocket, still have it. I bought a trading cable, and I bought Pokemon Blue version, all with my own money when I was like 13, 14, and maybe even, no, I was about that age. No, I was younger than that. I don't remember how old I was. It was like the late 90s, early thousands. So I went and bought those extra things with my own money. I played Blue all the way up to the points that I could get the Pokemon that I needed to trade over to Red. Or if I already had them on Red, I traded them to Blue and then back to Red so I could just fill out my Pokedex. I even went to one of the Mew giveaways at the mall, and I got Mew, and all they were doing was just loading it up on a Game Shark and sticking it on the cartridge for me, trading it to me by just catching like a level 2 Mew on Route 1 by Game Shark cheating to the point that it'll change whatever value of critter that you're facing into whatever Pokemon you want, but it'll be the same level as what it would have normally been on that route. That's all they did. And I found that out, and I was like, I could have done this myself. And then I went and bought a Game Shark, and I didn't abuse it. I did abuse Rare Candy when I played through Blue, but I played through Red so long that I could unlock all the Pokemon, get them all to max level, so I could have like a complete game. It took me forever to figure out that Growlithe evolves into Arcanine with a Firestone, because I got him to like level 90, and I was like, why is he not leveling? Why is he not evolving? Oh, he needs Firestone. And then I found out about emulation. Right about the time that Pokemon Yellow came out. Ended up getting I don't know if you can hear that, but there's a cat meowing outside the door because I had to kick him out of the room because this is like take number 6 on this video. Because every time I tried to start, he was always doing stupid stuff. Like getting into everything. Yeah, about Pokemon Yellow. I beat Pokemon Yellow. I used the Game Shark to teach my Pikachu Surf, so that way I could play the Surf minigame, which was pretty fun. It's basically Excite Bike, but with a Pikachu on a surfboard. And I learned about emulation, and I managed to get a cracked version of Pokemon Silver, and I played that all the way up until it ran out of English characters. And that was a big thing, because I was like, oh my god, this game is amazing. And then it came out, and Soul Silver, or not Soul Silver, just regular Silver Edition, became my passion. And it was so good, because Pokemon Gold and Silver kind of added in all this additional world, and it made basically the story from the first games kind of connect into the next. And there's not a lot of story there, but there was a connection, and I could feel it, and it was very natural. It was what you would expect to happen, to go from point A to point B. That was how it should have flowed. And you get 2 completely different regions to explore. That was the best. And Pokemon hasn't really done that since Silver and Gold. And I guess Crystal. Hang on. I need to go tell a cat to shut up. Hang on. Alright, we're back. And he's still a little brat. Still outside the room, but he is like panicking because he can't find his mom, and his mom is upstairs showering, so it's just me down here talking to myself and talking to you guys. Yeah. Anyway, where was I? Pokemon Crystal, yeah, simulation. Yeah, they haven't really done that since then. Now this has become one big long Pokemon rant. I didn't really want it to do that. Anyway, I moved on and got a PlayStation 2. I never had a GameCube. Did get a Wii. I had a Sega Saturn and a Sega Dreamcast. Both of those were pretty big flops. Unfortunately for Sega, they always had to create some new peripheral or some new console every, 6 months. That's what eventually did them under, is the fact that they had to continually and perpetually put out new stuff, new hardware, because they wanted to keep upgrading and keep the system evolving, but they didn't think about the fact that people aren't going to pay that much for that many peripherals. And now Nintendo does that. But people pay for the Nintendo stuff because it's relatively easily priced, easily accessible. It's basic stuff. Like the little sword add-ons that you can get to stick on the end of your Wiimote, or the little rubber sleeve that goes on the outside of your Wiimote, or the Motion Plus controllers, which are now built in, but you used to have to buy the Motion Plus plug by itself. So that's all completely different stuff. I will say that some of my favorite games on consoles I didn't have, like the Nintendo GameCube, Wind Waker. Wind Waker was awesome. I own it, play it on my Wii. Love it. Wind Waker was great. A lot of people didn't really like Wind Waker. I liked Wind Waker. The music was phenomenal. When you play a game and you just sit there listening to the music, you're like, I just fix me a drink of some description and then chill out listening to music. But I also kind of like the exploration bit. I didn't really like the Ocean Claw game where you can just dig into the water next to you with a little claw thing. I didn't find that very useful, but everything else in that game was pretty cool. The SSX Tricky, which is a snowboarding game on the GameCube. Love that game, mostly because it was just like wild and crazy and explosions and just ridiculous tricks on a snowboard, stuff you would never see. That was pretty fun. But aside from that, had a PlayStation 2, ended up owning all the Final Fantasy games. I can still safely say that 6 was my favorite. 7 is kind of close. Nothing else has really been close after that. The reason why 7's not my favorite just because it's very, very, very complex story. It's not that I didn't understand it. It just felt very convoluted. And it beggared too much that you must draw connections instead of it being like, well, this is because of this or this is because of this. Well, it's like, no. It's like, well, obviously he had to do that because he was a clone and he was thinking he was somebody else. But he's not really a clone because he had a lifetime before he was infused with Sephiroth Genova garbage. I did really, really like Star Ocean on the PlayStation 2 till the end of time. An amazing game. I spent so many hours in that game. And then our house was broken into, and my PlayStation 2 was stolen, as well as all of my games. I had about $400-something worth of PlayStation 2 games. It was my largest library, and would have still been my largest library next to my Steam library. The PlayStation 2 was a very, very big setback when our house was broken into, but they didn't take my TV because I had a little rinky-dink box that everything was hooked up to. That's sad. Anyway, I never owned a Xbox One, though I did have Fable. Got that on the PC, which was apparently the better idea to go because the Lost Chapters had better content in it than the original Xbox version. And Fable was pretty good. It wasn't what it was promised to be, but it was still pretty good. And Fable 2 was a big letdown, and Fable 3 was all right. There's aspects of it I liked, aspects I didn't like. I don't know. Most of the story was pretty good, and then all at the end, it's like, oh, you get to play a 20-minute kingdom management game, and then, hey, it's over. The game's done. It felt really rushed. Now, I did actually have a Nintendo 64 and a lot of different games with the Nintendo 64. I mean, Conker's Bad Fur Day. That game was fun, but it had a big red print on the front of the box, not intended for anyone under the age of 17. I had a bunch of games on 64, majority of the popular ones. I really enjoyed the 64 era, but some of the games were hit or miss. I guess Ocarina of Time was probably, obviously, the best. I never liked Super Mario 64, though I had it. I liked Kirby 64. Kirby 64 was alright. James Bond GoldenEye was alright. Rush 64 was alright. Mega Man 64, which was basically Mega Man Legends on the PlayStation 1, was also pretty good. I had that as well. Yeah, 64. 64 was pretty good. Yeah. The Nintendo Wii, I own a Wii. The only things I play on Nintendo anymore are Zelda games, because just like back when I was a little kid playing it on Super Nintendo, I'm terrified of dying in the game, but I still love that sense of exploration, that there's a whole world generated, that it's not purely focusing about combat, it's not about endless hordes of enemies, it's about puzzles, it's about a big open world, an awesome story, a lot of lore and things going on in the background. It's really, really cool. If you've never played the older Zelda games, Link to the Past is definitely one I would highly, highly recommend. And then Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time is supposed to be chronologically setting up everything for Link to the Past. But Link to the Past in itself is kind of a really good definitive overarching Zelda game where you get to actually go to the other world, the dark world where it used to house the Triforce, you know, like the Sacred Realm. And yeah, Zelda games. I don't really play Mario. Like I said, I'm more of a Sonic fan anyway, and I know they have a lot of crossovers, but I can tell when a game is not going to be worth it when I look at the box, and those were one of the ones. Sorry. I do have an Xbox 360 and a PlayStation 3. PlayStation 3, well, PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 1, Metal Gear Solid. It's my game. I love some Metal Gear Solid. Hideo Kojima's does some pretty good work. I've loved a lot of his stuff. I will say that the ending of Metal Gear Solid 4 is probably one of the biggest cop-outs I've ever seen. I like the original ending. It was very, very sad. It also was kind of a slap in the face of the viewers who have been so attached to Solid Snake for the longest time, and then it happens, and then they cop out the ending for a better ending, and yeah, it's better, but it's not. I don't know. It's really hard to describe those feelings. PlayStation 3, I play Uncharted, God of War games, of course. I do have additional copies of my Dreamcast games, even though I've long since sold my Dreamcast away at a pawn shop. I still have Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 because Sonic games, even though they're not the best. Sonic Adventure 2 had some really, really cool level designs for the Sonic and Shadow levels, which I actually kind of liked because when you could just tap a button and zip along a string of rings, yeah, it was a little over-the-top automated, but it also felt really good to keep this unbelievable momentum going perpetually. Like you never have to slow down, and that was kind of fun. Aside from that, I'm forgetting handhelds. Obviously, I've had a Game Boy Brick, Game Boy Pocket, which is the largest screen of any of the Game Boys, all the way up until the XLs of the DS series. I had a Game Boy Color. I never had a SP Game Boy, although I always wanted one because they had the light-up screen, and that would have been so much better than the little magnifying glass thing that you clip onto the Game Boy that's supposed to illuminate the screen, and all you get is reflection. And I've had two different kinds of DSs. I've had the original, and I had the original in Cobalt, and I have one of the lighter ones that came with Pokemon Black. So I've owned almost all the Pokemon games except for like Black 2 and White 2. I don't always end up playing all the games out 100% anymore. I never feel the need to. They're never as fun as the original first two series, and I guess to an extent even Series 3. So that's the case there. I do own a Game Boy Advance. I have a Platinum Edition Game Boy Advance. I bought it the day before they were supposed to go on sale. I got it at Walmart. I got it at regular price instead of the $100 more that it was supposed to be. So I got it for like $129 when it's supposed to be $229. They didn't work the prices right. And then let's see. I do have a Game Gear. That thing eats batteries like nothing, and my original Game Boy Brick does have a lot of dead pixels. Anything else I can add on? No, I I guess that's it for about my consoles. This has been a relatively long video. I wasn't expecting to ramble for 24 minutes. Or close to. Yeah, I've had a lot of experience with a lot of console games. Just wait until you hear the MMO list, because I've played a lot online. It's nuts. So, if you've made it this far in the video, thank you guys for hanging in there while I rambled around for like 24 minutes. Tell me, what kind of consoles do you guys have? What was your first console? What games really stuck with you forever? My favorite games, obviously, as you probably could have been able to tell by now, the original Pokemon series, Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past kind of defined it for me, but Legend of Zelda as a series, and Final Fantasy VI. I didn't really speak too much on Star Ocean, but Star Ocean's a really, really nice one. What kind of games really stood out for you? What kind of games really made you say, oh my god, this is what it is. This is what it means to be a gamer. This is amazing. And leave those down in the comment section below. I want to be able to read, and I'll get some feedback from you guys, and I'll incorporate it into next Tuesday's video. This one's going to go up alongside my Minecraft FTB series this upcoming Tuesday. I'm recording this slightly in advance, so that way I have everything in order. Thursday's topic, I'm going to discuss MMOs, mostly just MMOs I've done, and then next week we'll get into your responses for this video and Thursday's video, as well as start getting into newer, a little heavier topics in terms of where the industry is currently sitting on certain things like free to play and pay to win. So I will see you guys next time. Be sure to drop your comments down below. Again, comments on first console and games that really define for you what it means to be a gamer. I've been Warmack9, and I will see you guys next time.